Facebook program, Excellence in Education. This is Marta Perez, and our mission is to expose and inspire excellence in education. But before I introduce our extremely important guest, please note here at Community Newspaper, we use all the safety precautions. We wear masks coming in, we use hand sanitizers, temperatures are checked, and have this great plexiglass shield between speakers. Also, please follow us on Facebook and send your questions via our chat room. Now, please allow me to introduce a most influential and intellectual figure in modern American education. He is Fernando Zulueta, president and founder of Academica Corporation and Charter Schools. These are some of the most successful schools in the United States, with schools in Florida, Utah, Texas, California, and much more. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the emphasis of our program, excellence in education. So it is most appropriate for us to find out just how this very creative and educated man has been so successful with his schools. Fernando Zulueta is a brilliant man. He graduated summa cum laude from UM's School of Business. He was a Reed Scholar at UM School of Law, and his schools have won countless awards. His students and countless awards, and his parents are very satisfied. So I will be asking him how he has done all of this in his short life during this interview. So please welcome Mr. Fernando Zulueta. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you, Dr. Perez, and thank you for having me today. And I just want you to know that you're one of the people that I admire most
Oh, thank you.
in my career. And I've tried to model myself and my actions after you.
Thank you. I'm so complimented. Thank you very much. The first thing everyone wants to know, Fernando, is, and I'm sure you've thought of this, why are your schools so successful?
I mean, I think
And tell us about some of the successes, please.
Yeah, look, it's there are quite a few of them, and I believe one of the things that makes the greatest difference over the years that I've found is it's really empowering the educators that are there. It's making sure they have complete or as much autonomy as anyone can have in their professional environment, ensuring the teachers that are there have that level of autonomy and control over what they get to do, treating them like real professionals, and staying out of their way as much as possible. I've learned I'm one of those folks that at one point you want to micromanage things, you want to get deep down into the details and make sure, and then at a certain point you realize that if you're working with real pros, real professionals, people who really care deeply about what they do, then the best thing you can do is stay out of their way.
I think that's what every teacher wants, and I certainly hear it all the time that that it is daunting, especially now, and we'll get into what you've done with your schools. But tell us first, how did you get started in this business?
I got here because I was actually developing. I'm an attorney and an accountant. Like
did you ever work as an attorney?
I did, and then I know so are you. So and that was another thing which I thought was wonderful. You decided to also become an attorney.
Yes.
And you already were a doctor, a PhD, and everything. So I thought that was a great example to all girls. I've told my own daughters, look at what Marta Perez has accomplished, Dr. Perez, in her life, and don't think you're too ever, and you mentioned how young I was. I'm actually a whole lot older than I'd like to be, but and I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and that's been one of the wonderful things, is to be able to collaborate with the Miami-Dade School Board, where all of this began. And I stumbled into this, as happens often in life. I was a developer, a land developer, and a home builder, and I had developed, and I was entrepreneurial in spirit, and that's an
always
important thing.
Where did you get that spirit?
I think it runs in the family, and I mean more like my grandparent, my grandfathers. I just saw it. I just had always this desire inside me to build things or to create, and I love I just my mind is always racing with things that looking at things and seeing how I could try to do something better. And initially, what I was trying to do is figure out how we could make better new home communities. I was building communities throughout South Florida primarily for new families, starter homes they were called,
Hmm.
and they were very affordable housing.
How did you get into that?
Years before that, when I started college, studying accounting here at the University of Miami.
Hmm.
I began working through an accounting firm
Oh,
that I knew, an
okay.
accountant I knew. They referred me to work with a group of investors from
Oh,
Europe
oh,
who, in turn, were investing in real estate. So they
okay.
hired me. I was a 19-year-old uh, young kid in studying accounting, and they
Uh-huh.
hired me to be a bookkeeper. And that led one thing led to another. And by the time I was 21, they had made me vice president of one of their companies. So I
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, I got that was a great experience. I got to learn from really smart individuals who were involved at that time in real estate, and they all had great careers in some of the top universities, business schools in Europe, in particular in Spain, universities like ESADE and IESE, which are really their equivalent to the Harvard Business School or
Uh-huh.
Stanford. And so I learned a lot from these guys while I was studying
Uh-huh.
accounting and business. And then eventually those same investors asked me if I'd be willing to start a real estate company,
Oh,
and they would invest in me.
oh, wow.
So I was only like
And what was
yeah.
your first, what was your
You know,
first
I built right around the corner here. You may familiar.
development?
There's a one called Bridgepoint that
Uh-huh.
is a townhouse community, and next to that one near there,
Okay.
another one called Gables Point.
Oh,
I
wow.
had I was the project manager in those
Oh,
and
wow.
helped develop them, design them from scratch. Some of my friends who were studying architecture here at the University of Miami, this is back in 1984, were helping me design these new communities.
Oh, wow.
So, like again, I saw it happen the same with schools, which is weird. I start doing something, then all of a sudden people start coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Hey, we'd like you to help us do another one."
Do another one.
So that's what happened.
So where were you in that career path? How many developments have you
Yeah,
had before this epiphany came to you about
yeah.
the school?
It was a moment in time where I was probably developing close to 20 communities.
Units,
No, communities. Like,
communities.
yeah, we were building and delivering somewhere, sometimes as many as 500 to 1,000 homes per year
Wow.
in South Florida. So it was
Wow.
Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach
Okay.
at the time. And one of the challenges we kept encountering, and it was most acute in Broward at the time. If you recall, Southwest Broward was growing very rapidly. And
Yes.
we were building one community there, I remember, with more than 2,000 homes.
Wow.
So that's an entire,
That's a lot.
town. It's a small town. You're going to have 6,000 people living there. And again, many of them were young families that were the first question when they would show up and you were building a home for them was, how are the schools?
Uh-huh.
And the problem was there weren't any. It was Southwest Miramar,
Uh-huh.
and there were very few schools, public schools in the
Right.
area. And at the same time, this is back in 95, 96. In 96, we had the first charter school statute in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And I had two friends back at the time, both of whom were helping me on land use and zoning matters.
Uh-huh.
And then they were subsequently elected to the U.S. Congress. One of them was Congressman Peter Deutsch, and another one was Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart.
Oh, wow.
They were both friends. They both had worked with me on before they were in Congress, but they were attorneys in
Uh-huh.
land use matters because I was developing
Uh-huh.
things. So in that case, I back in '96 charter school.
How did you see that as a viable thing to do? How did you come up? Because it was like,
Yeah,
as you say, very new, and
very early on.
some that had opened were not successful.
Absolutely. And so I looked at it as I was building this community for 2,000 families, and I didn't have a school nearby. We really didn't.
So it was part of the selling point of your community.
It's critical. If you're starting a family and you have young children, or you're looking to have young children, your first question is, how good are the schools and which are the schools in the area? And we didn't have any because this was a new part of Southwest Broward. And Broward County, the district was struggling at the time, as were many fast-growing districts in Florida, that the growth of the housing was exceeding the capacity of the district to keep up. So our first charter school, which was Somerset in Broward County, was built in the community I was developing.
Inside?
Yes, we had, fortunately, we had land inside that was going to be designated as part of the recreation land. So we were able to set aside part of it and say, let's build a new school here. I met with each board member back then in Broward County.
School board members.
One-on-one. I remember with Peter, we had, I think it was 7 or 6 breakfast meetings in a row, 7 a.m. every morning. I would go to Broward, meet with a different school board member each day and the superintendent, and say, look, we really need, we're trying to build this community for these young families. We don't have a school. You don't have one in your 5-year plan. And they were happy, actually. They were like, look, we would love for you to try this. Let's build a school in your community, and let's see what happens. And what happened actually blew me away. We thought, we called it Somerset Neighborhood School, and we thought, look, we're just going to, most of the people coming here are just going to live in the neighborhood and walk here or ride their bikes, the children. It's the neighborhood where we were building. Instead, people signed up, and we had this enormous waiting list right from the beginning. People as far as 15 miles away wanted to go to this new charter school. I didn't know this at the time, but they had read that there was this whole new movement in public education where you could have a public school authorized by a school district and operated by a nonprofit with a mission in mind. And that mission would be, depending on the school, one that the parents would want or not want.
What do you remember what your original mission was for the first school?
I think in that one it was certainly neighborhood based, even though then we had folks come, but it was to build a school. It was multi-age. So we only opened with 2 classrooms the first year, K through 5.
Wow.
So that was a challenge. We had 2 teachers. One was Dr. Ruth Jacoby, who's still with us 20-some years later, and the head of education for Somerset Academy. And the other was Janine Sadesky and Shanine Sadesky. Shani was also a beginning teacher, was amazingly enthusiastic, and who's still with us today.
Wow,
also
that's
in
great
the organization.
That you retain
20-some years.
People.
I think we have the highest retention rate in the country.
Oh my goodness, that's great. We have a few comments. Gloria Artegona Pelaez says, he is such a talent, and says, I've been to many charter schools, and those under the Academica umbrella are the only ones where I would send my children and or grandchildren. So
thank you,
Gloria, for your comment.
And I want you to know that I send my children there as well. So I have my daughter Maggie graduated from Somerset SOMI this last year, which is only a few blocks away where we are right now. And she was there since pre-K 3. And I have 3 other children there. I dropped them off this morning. Little Millie, who's in 6th grade, Alaya, who's in 2nd grade, and little Fern is in pre-K 4.
So, all one boy and
4 girls. I have an older daughter who works with me, Lily, and never. Unfortunately, she's the only one that never got to go to one of our charter schools, and she was older than the highest grade that I was offering at the time. I would have wanted her to go.
So that young man is not going to be intimidated by women because he's going to grow up with so many girls.
I resigned myself long ago. My brother has 4 daughters as well. We had 8 between the 2 of us. We had 8 daughters before little Fern came into the picture.
Oh, yeah, he's the little king of the house.
Even our pet dog was female. So I'm very happy.
Speaking a little bit about your private life, what was your first job? And how did you grow up? Were you like a very good student? Tell us a little bit about your background and the young man that grew into this very successful entrepreneur.
Well, I was fortunate. Sometimes you're better off lucky than smart, and I was lucky to be a really good student. So I was smart enough to be a
And you have how many siblings?
I have 2 brothers.
2 brothers.
So
were they good too?
My parents,
Were they also good students?
They were all good students. I was the best, and I would challenge either of them in that. I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest?
Yeah. My brothers both work with me. Ignacio, who's also an attorney, has always worked on the side of real estate and finance, which is very important, as you know, to keep the the to build great schools, you need great facilities. And my brother George also worked in that arena as well. He spends a lot of time now caring for our parents. However, they're elderly now. My mom just turned 88 a few months ago, and my dad is up there as well.
And they were intellectuals. I mean, education was important.
It was very, and they sacrificed and struggled greatly so that we would get a good education, and I was very fortunate to do.
What did your father do as?
My father was an accountant. He was in Cuba. He was an accountant and bookkeeper, and here he.
And your mom?
He did that. My mom as well as a bookkeeper, but she worked with Centro Mater. She was one of the founders of Centro Mater 50 some years ago.
Wow!
And that was my first job when I was as a volunteer. And even subsequently, as a part-time job after school, I worked at Centro Mater in Little Havana. And I remember Mother Miranda, who was the founder, was my mom's, one of her teachers back in Havana when she grew up. So when Mother Miranda said she wanted to start a place in Little Havana for kids who didn't have, whose parents were working, and when they got home, they didn't have an after-school program at the time. They created Centro Mater, and my mom was one of the founders.
And that was your first job?
That was my first job too, working in the office with the social workers, and even many years later, they were still using some of the systems I developed with them, and I was in high school at the time, and I thought it was really fascinating because that's how we began one of the first charter schools. Then it was Mater Academy.
That's right.
That's where it originated.
Oh,
so the founding board of Mater Academy included all of them were members of Centro Mater's board.
Oh wow!
And one of them was Lincoln Diaz-Balart, who also joined the founding board. And that network has grown now to close to 40 schools. And it's amazing what they've accomplished.
How many schools do you have? Do you know?
Collectively, we work with about over 200 charter schools.
200 and in how many states and how many countries?
Okay, so states, I think we're up there in 9 or 10 states that we're active in.
I said and much more because I couldn't find all of the.
I have to look at the list too myself. I mean, you know how that is, especially when you get old like myself. You start forgetting some of those things, and it's moving constantly. The cool thing is the network, the Mater Academy network, is amazing. They they received the largest national U.S. Department of Education grant this year to replicate.
Wow!
So they had the largest award, which is like $60 million, to replicate their programs across the state and elsewhere in Texas and Nevada. And they're Mater Academies in Nevada as well.
In Nevada, they've grown all over the place.
And they've also won a lot of National Blue Ribbon Awards. To give you an idea, we just got 2 new nominations recently. The first one for a school out of state. So we just got the first nomination for, I believe, Pinecrest Academy in Nevada.
Wow.
Just got nominated for a Blue Ribbon.
What does a Blue Ribbon mean?
The U.S. Department of Education National Blue Ribbon Awards.
For excellent schools.
Exactly. So our schools have now been nominated and received 19 Blue Ribbons in the last 10 years. So more than any organization in the country. In fact, more than any, even more than I think the...
So how much you were an attorney, then a developer, and now how much do you have to research on education? And I mean, you've become a PhD without a...
I've spent the last 20 years basically doing education.
Right. And let me ask you this. Some people say that college education today is equivalent to a high school education of yesteryear. How do you feel about that?
I mean, good question. That's a wonderful question. I think more and more. I'm seeing high schools step up and improve on their programs. So I think that's the challenge now, is to ensure that we bring as much college into high school as possible. And as you know, I founded a college about, I think it's 12 years ago, Doral College.
Yes.
And it's now fully accredited. And it's operating in multiple states with us to help drive and ensure that our students are college ready, more than just college ready, that they're college achieving. So we're having many students graduating now with associate's degrees at each one of the high schools we work with. And that's critical. And I don't, and we learned a lot working with Miami-Dade County over the years and ensuring, because I know the district does the same thing. And you have the School of Advanced Studies, and you also have dual enrollment programs in every one of your high schools.
Yes,
So that's really
absolutely.
important.
That's very
In
important.
addition to advanced placement and others. So I'm not sure I agree entirely with the statement that that college is what high school was before. I don't know. I'm
Well,
not sure that yeah,
often I know that you
yeah.
hear that colleges complain that students that come to them from high school, they really don't have all of,
You're absolutely
the
right.
writing skills and some of the math skills, and they have to do remediation,
Yeah.
and that's a concern of mine.
That's a critical concern.
Because yes,
Yes.
it's wonderful that they graduate, but we want them to graduate with a lot in here,
I agree.
in order to be successful. But this has been a very um, difficult year
Terribly.
for everyone in our communities. So tell us, please, about your experiences with the pandemic, with your schools, how it all has happened, and where you are now.
Certainly. And it's fortuitous that we're here because I think we're a few days from the 1 year anniversary of when we last met
Yes,
over
sir.
at the school district.
And
And
tell
it was,
the public
yeah, it was
why you
right
were
at the,
there.
we were there because that was a day on March 13th last year,
Hmm.
and it was Friday the 13th, which is,
Sure.
odd
Yes.
or portentous or whatever, where the superintendent Carvalho announced that all schools would be closing effective that weekend, meaning
Hmm.
we would open in online exclusively starting that Monday, the 16th, which was my birthday. So Monday the 16th, so it's March 16th, which is last year. We opened school online, and we were very fortunate. And this is one of the dimensions that that we haven't spoken about yet, is that we have a large international program.
Yes.
So we have
Tell us about that.
yeah, we have tens of thousands of students that we work with in Europe primarily, although we are also in Latin
Wait,
America and other
you've
countries.
done that through working with the school districts in those
We work
European
with
countries,
schools directly, correct?
with the schools directly, or
Yes,
with their departments of education?
both, but typically with schools
School,
directly. And
a
they're
school.
very similar. It began in Spain about 12 or 15 years ago. We began working that way. And we call it the International Dual Diploma Program. And we began it because what we saw were a lot of students in Europe, in particular Spain, that wanted to have better English language skills. We thought it would be a great opportunity for them to connect with teachers and peers in America. And what we did was we offered a program where it's in addition to their schoolwork in Spain, for example, they take two classes online with teachers here in the United
Here,
States. They have to be certified. The
your
program is
your teachers.
they're teachers of the program. They're
Okay.
individuals that belong to these
So
to the school that
so
offers
they
that.
these students are students in a high school, let's say in Spain,
Correct.
and then two of their classes are
Online
online from you.
from teachers
Well,
that
yeah, well,
they have to be
but
certified. Yeah.
but teachers that you
That
have
we help,
commissioned,
that we
yeah.
provide. It's a private online school.
Okay,
And that school has its own teacher,
okay,
staff, and they provide online courses, live instruction
right.
for the most part, with students in Europe. And what that does is those are American teachers teaching American certified courses, and that school is fully accredited by Advanced Ed, which is now called Cognia. And the students, once they complete that program, they receive a fully accredited U.S. high school diploma in addition to their European one. What that does is that diploma, what we're able to do is because they take a third, let's say, of their classes roughly in English,
In English,
online with
online.
us, with certified teachers, that we can give them credit for the classes they take in Spanish, for example, in Spain,
Oh, okay,
the other classes. So you're
okay.
getting a full U.S. diploma along with your full European diploma. So
Wow.
we've been having graduations now for 11 years. I went 2 years ago. We weren't unable to have a physical graduation this year, so we had
Oh,
to do it.
you.
We go in the summer, so we have a graduation in, I think it's in July, early July. In Madrid, we had
Oh,
one
wow.
2 years ago. We had another in
A
Bordeaux.
nice time to go to
Yeah,
Madrid.
another one in Bordeaux, another one in
Wow,
Turin, Italy.
Wow.
and they're wonderful events. The one in Madrid, I think we had 1,200 or 1,500 graduates. It's a
Oh,
large
wow,
graduation, and
wow.
they're dressed with their graduation regalia and everything. They do the formal,
Oh my
just like a
God.
big high school graduation in
Okay.
America.
So you,
Beautiful event, by the way.
I mean, throughout your life,
Yeah.
I think you have been you one of the things that defines you is creativity because it
Yeah.
seems like you're always
Yeah, no, I'm always,
finding new
yeah.
things, and I mean the amount of specificity and this and that that this takes, it
It,
requires a great deal of creativity on your
yeah,
part.
I think, and I am 100%. I do believe, and that's why I personally, for example, I'm a musician.
Uh-huh.
I think I
Yes.
remember I performed. Our band performed once for an
Yes.
event where you were at
Yes,
many years ago
well, at Actors
at
Playhouse,
Actors Playhouse.
at one of their
They closed the street out.
yes, they closed the
It's
street.
either an opening gala event or
Yeah, it was
something
an
for Actors
opening, of
Playhouse.
course. Yeah, I'm a
Uh,
member.
yeah,
I'm a board member
you're a
of
board
Actors
member.
Playhouse, and
Oh,
I
oh.
remember that day very well too.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Long
Long.
time, yes, sir. Yeah, but I've
We're
heard you play other times, I think,
yeah.
as well.
No, we played in a lot of events and things, and I like to write music too. So I've
Oh,
got to write.
well, goodness.
This last year, I co-wrote a song with Pitbull,
Oh,
which is
which his slam schools are connected to
we
you.
he was one of the founders of the Slam Schools. Now there are 11 of them,
11.
and
And
we just had NASCAR there this last weekend. The
wow.
president of NASCAR was at Slam, and they love it. They want to help develop a strong STEM program
Oh, wow.
further
For
with
their
us.
students,
We
yes.
have a beautiful Slam campus in Nevada, in Henderson, Nevada, and they're going to
Wow.
have NASCAR race out there this weekend. So we're looking to do more things with NASCAR and other organizations.
And as far as your European and South,
Yeah,
do you also have schools in South America?
same way, same system,
Same
and we
system.
do. And if
What
you,
countries?
I certainly believe Colombia, among
Colombia,
others, and I think
Argentina.
Ecuador, Argentina, and honestly, you can have a podcast with the division president of that division
Oh my
down the
goodness.
line because he knows a lot
And
more.
speaking of,
Antonio
okay,
Roca runs
speaking
that
of
division.
internet, because I,
Yeah,
I'm fascinated with educational excellence.
yeah.
Excellence is
Me
what
too.
I'm
Me too.
always, and speaking of that, of international affairs, most successful school districts, I mean, the 10 most successful school districts are in the world are either in Asia or North Africa.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Hmm.
And what lessons can we learn from those schools, and how can we use that in our communities? The most successful school districts, like there's like seven, the 10, 10, seven are in Asia, and three are in North Europe.
Oh, Northern Europe.
Northern Europe. Northern Europe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I know Finland has some amazing schools. I visited a lot of schools in Europe with our work there,
yes.
and we get a lot of lessons. And that's what I love about that work. That everything we've done has been purposeful in that it helps enrich what we do back here in Miami and across the nation with our
Right.
own with our students here, which is it helps us. You get to visit and you see great practices and great things that go on. I mean, there's stuff that happens in Spain, for example. This I don't know if it makes for a great district or not, but it certainly was wonderful to go to a school. One of the first schools we worked with, I remember going there and they were having lunch, and they had white tablecloths.
Huh.
You know, and this is a normal school, and
Yes.
in a little town, I mean, a small town
In
in a very remote part in Soria, Spain, so a very remote and underpopulated part of the country, more rural and agrarian. They and the kids were having fish. I mean, but real fish, like a fish fillets with a full, you know, like it looked like they were in a
meal.
fancy restaurant, yeah, fancy restaurant looking meal, and it was something which I had never seen in a cafeteria,
No.
in a school cafeteria
not
in America, like a white tablecloth with
Right.
With full silverware,
Yes.
you know, full plates,
Yes.
you know, and I was like amazed, but it was great because you got this sensation of these children were happy, they were learning like skills as well to be, you know, how to sit at a table properly and how to eat properly, and not that we don't do that in our schools, but you saw this
Oh, we
this
don't do that in
engagement.
our schools so
Yeah.
much. I'll
Yeah,
tell you,
we don't do enough of that.
enough
Yeah.
of it because in many cases, uh, for example, we have to use we can't use silverware. because for the hygiene. So we use those. What are those called? Sports,
Oh
smart
yes,
sports.
yes, sports.
And so what
Yeah,
happens? And they come so wrapped
I know,
that
I know,
what happens? This is what I
and it's
witnessed
a lot of waste. Yeah,
that instead because it's wrapped, most of the kids don't even
yeah,
unwrap it and they eat with their hands, and there's just so much that we are able
I'm with you.
to do,
Yeah,
and yes, we
I
see
think we
other
learn lessons around the world that way, which is
that
great.
way. But the education piece for me is always a very
I think
like
it's critical,
I
and certainly what I've
and
seen in
the
Europe, they
the
embrace more languages, and I think we all know, and you know, as an educator,
uh-huh,
a lifelong educator,
mhm,
that having it's like they say in France, another language is another soul,
mhm.
and I truly believe that.
That's true. Yes, I guess I
And
think
yeah, you
that's
can
a good way.
you link you think deeply, and you
Well,
want
yeah,
you see how you when you're thinking in Spanish,
you
you're
think one
thinking
way and you think
you're a different person.
yes, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, not a different person, but you get a different
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. There's a
And
different dimension to
yeah,
your thought,
absolutely.
and
So
I think there's
our time is almost up, and I do want to ask you
that
some
flew by.
more about you. I had green schools, the arts, so many other questions, but how do you see the future for education, Fernando, in the next 5 years?
I think we have a new moment in time where we're not a lot of us. I was thinking about that the other day. Where we're faced. It's this moment where a large group of us are saying, "Hey, they're just hoping for we return to business as usual," and others. And there's another way of looking at it. No, it's never going to be business as usual again. We're in a moment in time where we've seen how I think we need to rethink how we approach the educational model, and I think we can do a better job going forward. And I think part of that is giving much greater flexibility to parents and families in how they access the schoolhouse, how we can devote the resources to the children that need it, that are struggling, and how we channel those, and how we create a more flexible education environment. I as a parent, I experience it every day, where I have some children that are learning from home and others that are going only because of the circumstances of the pandemic. Some of them are on split shifts, right? They go in some days, and other days they're required to stay home because there's just not enough physical capacity with social distancing
Right.
to have them all back at school. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's something I think that has I I'm a believer, and I think we lived through that, Dr. Perez. Is that sometimes adversity helps also to build character and to build resilience. And I think having spent this last year in in adverse circumstances, our community and the nation and the world at large, I think traversing those adverse moments, I think we should view it as an opportunity where we can learn to cooperate more with each other, collaborate more, and then find new solutions to the problems, and not go back to the same old, same old. Not view that as the goal, but rather, can we emerge from this in a better position than
Right.
we entered it?
Yes, from your mouth to God's ear.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I hope she's
We had
listening.
so much, so many more. Please come back
Yeah.
and join us again. Hopefully, when things are different and there's a whole new world for of educational excellence.
Well,
So
thank you for the work you do,
thank
and
you.
you're a bright light in the community.
Thank
You've
you.
always upheld the highest standards in everything you do, and
Thank
it's
you.
been an honor to be
So
your
thank you
guest.
again so much, and all the best to you and to your children, and to our community.
Thank you.
And so thank you all for joining us in this program, Excellence in Education.
And thank you for the cookie.